Good evening. Tonight's bedtime story comes from The Art of Being and Becoming by Hazrat Inayat Khan. Let's see where I left off. The soul who refuses certainly to develop the personality shows its ignorance of the great purpose for which the whole play is produced on the stage of the earth. Any efforts made in developing the personality or in character building must be for the sake not of proving oneself superior to others, but of becoming more agreeable to those around one and to those with whom one comes in contact. Conciliation is not only the moral, it is the sign. This virtue is not learned and practiced easily, for it needs not only goodwill but wisdom. The talent of the diplomat consists in bringing about such results as are desirable with mutual agreement. Disagreement is easy. Among the lower creation, one sees it so often. It is agreement that is difficult. For it needs a wider outlook, which is the true sign of spirituality. Narrowness of outlook makes man's vision small. The person with a narrow outlook cannot easily agree with another. There is always a meeting ground for two people, however much they differ in thought, but the meeting ground may be far off. And when that is so, a person is not always willing to take the trouble to go so far in order to come to an agreement. Very often this is due to his lack of patience. What generally happens is that each wants the other to meet him at the place where he is standing. There is no desire on the part of either to move from the spot. There is no advantage in always being lenient towards every thought that comes from another, nor in erasing one's own ideas from one's heart. That is not conciliation. The one who is able to listen to another is the one who will make another listen to him. The one who finds it easy to agree with another will have the power of making another agree easily with him. Therefore, in doing so, one really gains, in spite of the apparent loss which may sometimes occur. When a man is able to see both from his own point of view and from that of another, he has complete vision and a clear insight. He, so to speak, sees with both eyes. No doubt, friction produces light, but light is the agreement of the atoms. Two people having their own ideas and arguing about them can be a stimulus to thought, and then it does not matter so much. But when a person argues for the sake of argument, the argument becomes his game. He has no satisfaction in conciliation. Words provide the means of disagreement, and reasons become the fuel for this fire. But wisdom is found where the intelligence is pliable, where it understands all things, even the wrongs of the right and the right of the wrong. The soul who arrives at perfect knowledge has risen above right and wrong. He knows them, and yet he knows not. He can say much, and yet what can he say? Then it becomes easy for him to conciliate each and all. There is a story of two Sufis who met after having traveled their different ways. They were glad to meet each other after many years of separation, as they were both pupils of the same Murshid. One said to the other, "After all this time of study and practice of Sufism, I have learned one thing, how to conciliate another, and I can do it very well now. Will you please tell me your life's experience? What have you learned?" The other one said, "After all this time of study and practice, I have learned how to master life. All that there is in this world is for me, and I am the master. All that happens by my will." Then came the Murshid, whose murids both of them were, and they spoke to him of their experiences during their journey. The Murshid said, "Both of you are right. In the case of the first, it was self-denial in the right sense of the word that enabled him to conciliate others. In the case of the second, there was no longer any of his will left. If there was any will, it was the will of God." Just need to drink a little bit. I guess now's a good time to rattle some seashells. I go to the beach a lot. In human beings, one finds millions of qualities. Every quality has its origin in heredity and is in reality a mixture, a kind of solution of different qualities. So every person will have qualities unlike those of others, and every person is unique in his way. In this lies the secret of the oneness of God. Not only is God one, but man is one too. One should never be discouraged or disappointed in life. Man has the key to his own life in his hand, if he only knew it. It is absurd to say, "I do not have that quality." There is no quality in the world that man does not have, either good or bad. The soundest psychology is to say to oneself that one has the quality one thinks most desirable, most attractive, and one has not that quality which one does not think desirable. There is infinite variety in personality. The law of variety comes from the nature of manifestation. Every current taking a different direction becomes different and manifests differently. Variety is also caused by time and space, and every personality differs because of time and space. A person born in one year will be different from a person born in another year. A person born in 1 month or on a certain day will be different from a person born in another month or on another day. Every moment makes a difference because of the difference in people's breath. The difference of personality comes also through the difference in the direction of one's thought. One's personality depends on the direction in which one's thought goes, and also on one's action, motive, expression. All these things cause differences in personality. There's a story of a dervish who was standing in the middle of the street when the procession of the king was approaching. First came the pages, who ran before the procession, and they pushed him and said, "Don't you see? The king is coming. Go away." And the dervish smiled and said, "That is why." And he remained in the same place. Then there came the horsemen, the bodyguards. They said, "Get out of the way. The procession is coming." The dervish smiled and said, "That is why." Next, the courtiers came and saw the dervish standing there, and instead of telling the dervish to go away, they moved their horses a little away from where he stood, and again the dervish said, "That is why." Finally came the king, and when the king saw the dervish standing there, he greeted him first. And the dervish in reply said, "That is why." An intelligent young man asked him, "What is it you mean by this remark?" The dervish answered, "You can see that is why he is what he is." People have wiped this ideal away from their minds. Where is democracy? The kingliness of greeting the dervish. That is democracy. But the man who is not evolved, who is pulling the most evolved down to his level, has a wrong conception of democracy. It is going downwards instead of upwards. If lack of manners and consideration can be democracy, it loses its real ideal and true spirit. Democracy is the result of aristocracy. When the spirit of aristocracy has evolved sufficiently, it becomes democracy. Then a person thinks, "I am the equal of any person in the world. There is no person lower than I." But if a person says there's no person higher than I, that is not democracy. In Burma, one finds Buddhists of a very wonderful kind. They are the only race that for centuries has believed that there is no religion that is not as good as their own. Imagine today when the followers. If I were to speak before the world today about occult power, psychic power, spirit communication, breathing practices, people would be glad to listen. But if I say simple things like this, it means nothing to them. Yet, suppose one did not develop personality. What about spirituality? A person must be a person first, and spiritual afterwards. If he is not a person, then what is the use of being spiritual? It is going back instead of going forward. Man is born to fulfill the purpose of his life. He is made to prove he is a human being, a person who can be relied upon, a person whose word carries authority, who uses thought and consideration, whom one can trust with one's secret, a person who will not humiliate himself under any conditions, who will lose his life rather than humble himself, who will not deceive or cheat anybody, who will never go back on his word, a person who will carry through what he has once undertaken. All these qualities make a person a human being. Today, our condition is such that we cannot believe in one another's word. We have to have a stamp on a contract. Why are we in such a condition? Because we are not evolving towards the ideal the ancient people had. That is why we cannot trust each other individually. That is why nations cannot trust one another. Very often, when I speak of the development of personality, people ask me, what about annihilation? But it depends on what form of annihilation they mean. One can only be a spendthrift if one has wealth. One cannot annihilate what one does not possess. When an individual has no personality, he can annihilate nothing. There must be something first. If a person started in life with self-effacement, he would never become a self. What would he efface? Effacing comes afterwards. First, he must be a self, a real self that is worth being. One makes one's nature by one's likes and dislikes, by what one favors or disfavors. When a person says, I don't like this food, he has built something into his nature, and then that food, when eaten, will often disagree with him. It is not that it was meant to disagree with him, but he made it disagree by disliking it. By control, bravery, endurance, steadiness. By all such qualities, one makes one's nature either agreeable or disagreeable. Either one makes one's nature as hard as a rock that will not allow anything to pass, or one makes one's nature as pliable as water. Thanks for listening. May you find lasting happiness.